On this episode of AV Week, what AV pros need to know about the AV over IP market, getting back into the house of worship safely, and Exertis rebrands globally. All that and more. Next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 477, recorded Friday, October 9th, 2020. Monitor and manage.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Sure, sound extraordinary.
And by Crestron.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week, first and foremost, Corey Schaefer from QSC. Welcome, ma'am.
Hey, good to be here again on the old AV Nation.
Yeah, and if you're not watching the video, Corey has a brand spanking new QSC background. So yeah, absolutely, that's fancy. Somebody helped you. That's fancy. Yeah, I need to get somebody. The other fake background, I'm going to save Giovanni because he's the only one with the real one. David Silverstein from D10. It's overlooking Central Park.
Little Central Park shot because why not? Looked pretty cool.
All right, and I mentioned, last but not least, Giovanni Agramonte from Art Media, who has a real background of his real backyard. So how are you, sir?
I am well, sir. Thank you for having me here today.
Absolutely. So let's kick this off with our first story. It comes to us from our friends over at AV Magazine. Exertis has Stampede, which is a distributor here in the States, was purchased by Exertis a number of years ago. Exertis, though, is coming out and they're rolling out as Exertis globally. What that means is that anybody that they owned, whether that was in Australia, whether that was in the UK, or obviously here in the States, they're going to be all known as Exertis here. Agramonte, I'm going to start with you on this. When it comes to talking about or dealing with any company, whether it's a distributor, whether it's a manufacturer, what have you, does the name change really impact who you deal with on a day-to-day basis, or is it from your standpoint, it's just a name change regardless, and we just kind of go on doing business with just a different name?
I think it depends on how the staff assimilates the name change. Some people may fall in love with a particular brand, and it'll be more challenging for them to make the transition, because also with the name change, you could also have cultural change within the operations of the company. So it all depends on how the name change is implemented, how it's shared with the people who are being absorbed, and how they're coached as to what's about to happen with them in their position. Because people often get worried when a name change happens. The first thing they think about is my job on the line? Yeah. So it all depends on how
I'm going to jump in and just say, I think branding, what I see happening with them is it's the branding. They've done these acquisitions, and so now they're trying to come together as one cohesive brand. And I think branding is more than a name change. And that's what I read into it. It's not just a name change. It's making sure that values are aligned, the culture of the organization is aligned, how they service customers, et cetera, is aligned. I mean, hopefully, as they do branding. Name changing is really, when you do a name change or a brand change, it's difficult if you're not thinking of it all the way through. And I'm just going to throw one out there that happened, well over a year ago. And I question how effective it is, and it's Poly, right? Because every single time I see communication from Poly, it has in parentheses, former Plantronics Polycom, so I'm wondering, why do they have to keep explaining that, and so I kind of question, when you do a brand change, how long do you have to kind of carry the legacy, the heritage along with you, and there needs to be a full brand initiative and not just a name change.
Mm-hmm.
I would totally have to agree with that. Let me, in this particular case, I think the change was well warranted because in today's world, our customers operate throughout the world, which means our dealerships operate throughout the world. So what we're talking about is now a global distributor where I know that my European office is going to buy from the same entity that buys from the US, that buys from Asia Pac, right? So for that reason, I think it was a brilliant idea to do the name change and make everything consistent for people.
Yeah.
It's just a lot easier to handle, right? A name change, why Poly changed their name, for example, that's more just a name change. This was very strategic. It's branding, it's identification, and it's to support the worldwide dealer base that's now out there with so many people operating in so many other countries.
Well, hang on for a second, though, David, because the Poly's name change wasn't just a name change. They got purchased by Plantronics.
Yes, right.
They got purchased by Plantronics, and that was. This is my 2 cents and my opinion only. It was Plantronics trying to make sure that the pro AV and the UC space didn't think that Plantronics was doing away with Polycom, right? So, because if you I mean, Plantronics is the older of the two companies. They've been around since the late 50s, early 60s, and they've got technically a longer track record, especially in the headsets and communications, telecommunications market. So that one was curious, has been curious to me for 2 years.
Yeah.
So that was more, kind of aligning, I guess, or bringing two companies together. I don't know. That one was,
It's still curious to me a little bit.
There's an old adage that when two companies merge or come together, in the background, the winner is decided by who stays as CEO between the two companies, who keeps the name between the two companies, and who keeps the headquarters location between the two companies.
Well, if that's the thing, then I would say everything but the name is Plantronics, right?
Exactly.
That's who won that.
Yep.
But the name still,
yeah, right.
That is interesting. All right. Let's kick it around here to another story we've got here from our friends over at Commercial Integrator. 8 AV over IP market trends that installers need to know. Taking a look at what not only the folks at Commercial Integrator we're talking about, also this is really from a survey that they did, getting their listeners and their readers feedback. One of the things that I found interesting, and David, we'll start with you on this, talking about, most folks have at least they're ready to get AV over IP, right? They're understanding it, they're grasping it, but the deployment's not there yet. And when you look at this, when it comes to replacing traditional video distribution, right? Whether that's single classroom here or it's building wide or campus wide. When you look at stats like that say, yes, our clients are ready. They're at least willing to have that conversation, but the deployments aren't there yet. The actual installs aren't there yet. What does that say to you?
I think that what that says to me is they're doing exactly what the market is dictating. So if we talk about anybody who talks about the market right now, everybody's talking about small conference rooms, huddle rooms, little tiny spaces, as opposed to large scale 20 classrooms all connected together with a matrix switch in the middle. Most people aren't building that kind of infrastructure anymore. And the key about AV over IP is when it scales. The more endpoints you have, the more affordable AV over IP becomes. There's plenty of technology, HD-based T and others, that allow you to do single point-to-point dedicated solutions or point to a couple of points, et cetera. And the price difference between that hardware-based switching solution and a network-based switching solution is not that much of a difference. So why make the change? Only when you go to those larger pieces do you actually see the cost savings. And that's really the key that I think we're running into today. In the long term, is the network going to take over everything? Yeah, probably.
Oh, I'm of the opinion of the network is going to take over everything. And I'm also, thinking about this, preparing for this discussion, I feel like in AV, we still have so far to go in speaking this language, right? Because the decision maker very much is IT, but yet we still aren't speaking their language. We still spend too much time on HDMI versus, talking about the security, and what we're doing on our ports and what's open and why they're open and speaking to that IT customer. But I feel like to get this to really go, we have to go more into their space, and we also need to be talking less about our AV speak and these rooms and talk about how they can monitor, manage, update, etc., the things that IT people really care about, and being able to access things, remotely, being able to push updates and see things, because today they see their endpoints, that are on the network, and often now they're also seeing USB endpoints, but they're not seeing IP endpoints, and that's what we can bring to them when we can start speaking their language.
I definitely agree. And what I have noticed with the trend is that more IT companies are now entering the space of AV because they're already providing the infrastructure for the data to go back and forth. And with them providing now AV on top of what they already provide, managed services of different types, it just seems to make everything work more seamless and cohesive in one space. The challenge that I've noticed is that, because I know a few IT people, they don't want to manage audio video. That to them is a foreign thing, but they understand that those peripherals and those devices need to go through their network, so they deal with it, but they're not really excited about that. So that's how
I think we make it too complicated for them. Just kind of everything about it. We talk about the secret sauce, how complicated it is, etc. When we should be thinking about how do we make it easier, and what kinds of hooks do they want, and why do they want, versus trying to keep talking about how special it is. Our spaces are the high value spaces. We should be helping them monitoring, manage, and update them. And
as any industry gets larger, people will break off and become specialists in certain areas. If you look at the medical industry, there are lots of different specialties all over the place, but everybody's a doctor and they all know the basics of talking to each other. If I apply that to the IT world we're in today, in essence, we are the plastic surgeons of the IT world. We make people look good. We make people sound good. That's what our job is. But we also have to understand and be able to speak doctor, the basics of doctor. And if we can do that, they will accept us as the plastic surgeons, because they don't want to be a plastic surgeon. They want to be a heart surgeon. And believe me, I don't want my heart surgeon doing my plastic surgery, and I don't want my plastic surgeon doing my heart surgery.
So let me ask a very hard question. To any of the three of you, and something that Corey said there. She said, we talk about our secret sauce, and we have to make it easier. Is some of the reason that we don't, and I say we as the royal we, the industry, is for job security. We being, sound engineers, video engineers, programmers, we like to keep our magic in our bag and put it, in our back pocket, because nobody else can do what we do, quote unquote, is the reason that we're making it and keeping it hard. Maybe is out of fear to make sure that we still have jobs.
I would agree that the reason why most do it is because of fear. However, my approach with regards to our industry has always been to share my experience with the people that are coming behind me, not to hold on to it, not to hoard it. This is not more special and you won't be able to touch this. No, my thing is teaching them how to do it so that I could remove that type of anxiety out of my system. And my belief, which is just mine, if I share this information with others and empower others, that's already pushing me away from that level. And it's allowing me to now become more open to things that are ahead of me that I can't see at that moment. I love sharing the information and teaching, because we're not going to take this with us to the grave. And the technology continues to improve every few months.
Yeah.
So holding on to this thing, that's not how you're really going to make it. You're going to make it by imparting your wisdom on others. Those that are curious, share with them, build them, and continue to build your relationship. You allow more room inside of you for these new things that are ahead that you're not experiencing at the time.
100%, Giovanni. I agree. And there is a bit of secret sauce. Let's admit it. But but we can make it easier, and technology has improved. As an example, many of these meeting rooms want to use the ceiling microphones. I've been in this industry for a very long time, and I remember talking people out of that because laws of physics, you want to be closer to a microphone, right? The better people sound, etc. But we've adapted because technology has gotten better, and we have a lot of flex spaces, furniture changes, etc. And we've been able to kind of come up with a happy medium from the perfect secret sauce. Is it ideal of what a broadcaster would want to have in an all hands meeting, etc.? No. But can we make it easy so that we can accommodate the challenge at that site of the movable furniture and so on? So I believe that we have to let go of the job security, find a way to come together and find these areas of compromise. So is a ceiling microphone as good as being right on a microphone? No, never will be, etc. But can we make some compromises, understanding the use case and the challenges these users have?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that the one last thing is, I think, in that scenario, our secret sauce, our knowledge is when do we, based on the use case, use the ceiling microphone versus the handheld microphone. We shouldn't be worried about talking about what IP address we're running or what network switch we're using. We have this inherent knowledge that an IT guy doesn't want to know or care about that. That's why we're there, is to help them out with those things.
Right.
Exactly.
The one thing about what Giovanni said is an old instructor of mine counseled me as I started teaching 20 years ago. He said, you want to be immortal? You go and teach everything you know to these kids over here, because your knowledge and what you know is going to live on to them long after you're dead. And if you teach them to teach, then that's another generation that what you know and your knowledge will continue on. So
interesting you said that, because one of the things I tell every student, the only thing you owe me is to teach what I shared with you to another person. That's it.
100%. Yep. Absolutely.
Pay it forward.
All right. Last story here comes to us from our friends over at Sound and Communications, looking at staying safe during COVID, specifically about the house of worship market. It was a very interesting article, and I want to point out the fact that it's, David Lee Jr., who writes a lot for Sound and Communications, has a real big handle on the house of worship market. And this is a market that, when it comes to COVID and staying safe, number one, they got nailed, just like every other live events industry. Churches, by and large, and this is not being sacrilegious here. I go to, my own here local church. They are a live events, production, right?
Yep.
Yes, the scriptures are read, and depending, it doesn't matter what denomination you are, what religion you are. If you're going to a house of worship, a place of religion, there are scriptures being read by and large, and there are, sometimes there's music. So there are production. There's a microphone. There's a connection. There's distribution. There are speakers, right? Again, depending on where you're at, there's lighting. When the U.S. at least got locked down, they were told they couldn't have services, and so they had, a lot of them did live streaming. Some of them did it well, some of them did not so well. It depends on where you're at. But as they started to come back, they had another challenge. These are all volunteers, by and large. Again, these are broad stroke statements here. So as volunteers, you are sharing instruments, you are sharing headphones, you are sharing, if you got some sort of in-ear system, a lot of times, sometimes you're sharing in-ear systems, which is kind of gross, but whatever. And you're also sharing microphones, right? One of the biggest carriers, and this is not a COVID statement, this is a straight up just health statement. One of the biggest areas when I was still volunteering in our audio department at my local church was making sure that we sanitized the wireless mics, because depending on who you are, depends on how close you use the mic, and you are, coughing and whatever else, on the microphone, that will pass on to the next person. Now you put that in COVID, this article really kind of grabbed me. And Corey, I want to start with you on this. As you guys are talking with at QSC and is talking with your dealers, but also a lot of your end users are houses of worship. When you start talking to them about getting back into service and getting back into the swing of things, what are some of the areas that kind of you guys can share your knowledge about what you're seeing other people do to make sure that the volunteers are safe, but also that the congregation is safe, and all of the people that are on stage using these equipment is.
So first of all, what we can do and what we will do is share the information we're gaining by articles such as this. I had never seen an article that went so in depth about what a house of worship was doing. And I really applaud him for writing it in such depth and going into such detail. So, at QSC we have, mixers and, people needing to touch the mixer and how to clean that and without damaging the equipment. I think all of us manufacturers, when we know somebody's going to be touching something, we need to be offering our best practices so that they're not voiding the warranty or damaging the equipment. And we know that this virus is spread through droplets, etc. And in a house of worship where music is such a huge part of the experience, and to Tim's point, people sharing the microphone and the fact of what they're doing to sanitize the screen and isolate this particular accessory just to that particular person who will be using it. I was honestly, Tim, when reading it, I would kind of first I went, okay, is it going to be the typical hand sanitizer, social distancing? But this went so in depth and it was so well done. I was really enlightened by it. And I think us manufacturers, QSC and all of us, any of our devices where people are touching in an event, we need to be giving them guidance on best practices to clean and not void the warranty and to help them avoid some of the trial and error situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Giovanni, same kind of question is whether it's a house of worship or it's a corporate environment or it's an education, how do you kind of lay out to your clients, these are the best practices, this is what you should do to make sure that your equipment stays sanitized throughout different uses?
You just have to have a conversation. you just, if you're providing the equipment and you're putting these items in place for them, when it's time for you to do your training on how to use the equipment, you just have to share that information. That article to me was actually a really good article. And in reading it, I was thinking to myself, how many places have never practiced any of what he wrote? In places I've been to over the years, so reading that article, it just gave me another level of, if he's explaining that it's okay to talk about this and we need to be able to share this with clients up front because it's important. It's for the safety of their staff. Why wouldn't they want to have that information?
And I think we want to encourage our clients to share it with their base, right? So because, houses of worship are about community and building our community and wanting to feel safe. And when people are aware of the precautions that an organization is taking and how thoughtful they're being, keeping, safety top of mind, we need to just keep pushing that down to even the members that are walking in.
And even by having those conversations with our clients, that says something about us.
Yeah.
Oh, you care about me. That's the first thing that's going to come into their mind. Oh, you really care about me and what I'm doing and how long these devices will live. Thank you. It'll be appreciated. It was a very good article. The details it was great.
Absolutely.
I absolutely agree. Now, in my world, you wipe down a screen and you're kind of done, right? Because everything that I do is all in one, it's pretty easy. But when we get into these production environments and microphones, wired, wireless, absolutely, some of the things that they were doing to get things clean were pretty amazing. I look at some of the other industries that have had taken on this role. The governor of the state of New York very clearly says we sanitize the subways every night in New York City We used to not know how to clean a subway in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so they had a big learning curve to go from one to the other. And, you look at that environment, a lot of nooks and crannies, a lot of things that are there. And the one thing that they've been successful with, as well as the airlines, is they're using UV light through certain spaces to clean stuff up. I think it would be interesting, certainly somebody in the AV space, to see how UV light cleans. Maybe it would be quicker and easier to do something like that in a production environment than soaking a microphone in alcohol for 12 hours.
Yeah.
Well, it also
There might be other ways to get people back going.
To Corey's point, that also might be using the UV light also might help not void the warranty, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That too. Definitely the what's great. So the ups, I try to look for the positive in anything, even with the challenges we're facing. And what I would say that with the challenges we are facing today, the one thing that has surfaced is cleanliness. With many cultures, with different people from walks of different lives, because some people culturally, they may take care of themselves a certain way, but with everything that has happened, this has put hygiene on the forefront. So if you weren't aware of it before, you're aware of it now. And that, to me, is definitely a plus on a global level.
And a PSA announcement I'd like to make is our personal devices, our phones, clean them frequently.
I honestly don't know when the last time I did that, Corey. So,
It's
but mine's
PSA.
so, all right. That'll do it for us. Thank you all so much. Giovanni Agamani, thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. How do people get a hold of you or Art Media Corp?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Giovanni Agramonti. Hit me through there, and I'll reply to you. And any information I need to send you about Art Media, I'll get it to you.
All right. Very good. Mr. Silverstein, thank you, sir.
Oh, by all means. It's always fun to be here.
All right. How do people get a hold of you or D10?
Of course, you can find me on LinkedIn and David Silverstein, obviously. D10 is d10.com, and the Twitter, I'm D10Dave.
All right. And last but not least, Corey Schaefer from QSC. Thank you, ma'am.
Hey, thanks for having me, and great to be on with Giovanni and David. Nice to see you guys. You can find me, corey.schaefer@qsc.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find me on the Twitters.
All right, very good. For Tim Albright, don't follow me on the Twitters, because at this point, we're recording this on Friday, the 9th of October, and I am trolling Craig McCormick from Commercial Innovator because the Bears beat the Bucks last night, meaning that they beat Tom Brady. So, but go by the website if you would, please, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others, including our weekly residential program hosted by my buddy Matt Scott. Also, while you're there, check out our underwriter section. These are the folks who help us financially, help us bring you AVWeek and ResiWeek and all others. And QSC is one of those, so we thank them for their support. One thing that's interesting, it's kind of cool, that came down the pipeline this week, is that we are teaming up with the folks at Future and System Contractors News, SCN, my buddy Megan Detta over there in AV Technology, for a new event. December 10th is the event's one day. You'll get a bunch of CTS RUs. You'll get to see me moderate some panels on AV over IP and networked audio. You'll get to see Megan do the same. We'll have a really great keynote. So you can check that out. You can go to the website, avnetworknation.com, and that's the name of the event, AV Network Nation. AV Network is their website. AV Nation obviously is ours. So you can check that out at avnetworknation.com. So sign up for that, and we'll see you on December 10th, or we'll see you, when you listen to the next AV Nation podcast. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.